Holy fuck. Everybody was Signs. No, not Signs. Was it Signs? Yeah, I think it was Signs. Like, yeah, megastar. He was the biggest guy.
But maybe he could see it
Lethal
more clearly
Weapon. I forgot
because
about
he
that.
wasn't made
Mad
in Hollywood
Max.
the way most people at his level were. He wasn't some Nepo Hollywood adjacent.
Yep.
His family moved from New York to Australia when he was just 12 after his dad won a workplace injury settlement. He had no connections and no industry parents carefully managing his rise.
See, that's right, bro. Like, this guy just made it out the mud. Actually, literally, because it's Australia.
Studied acting because his sister filled out the application without telling him. Then Mad Max turned him into a global star before he even learned how the system truly functioned. Mad Max came in clutch, and it happened in the most Mel Gibson way ever. He'd been in a bar fight the day before the interview he didn't even want to go to, and his
fucking legend. Absolute fucking legend.
face was all bruised and swollen. He looked like the perfect post-apocalyptic tough guy, and not long after, he got the job. Mad Max absolutely smashed the box office, and he became a star. Relocating to Hollywood was just the next logical step. So the peculiar thing here is that by the time he showed up in LA for the film Lethal Weapon, he was already famous.
I mean, like, because it wasn't even Mad Max at the beginning, it was The Road Warrior. And then after that, it was Mad Max. And then I think after that was Thunderdome. I think that's what there might have been another one, but I'm not sure.
Is because he didn't owe anyone. He didn't have to spend years.
Because the thing is that I was a big fan of Fist of the North Star. I love the anime. I think it's amazing, right? Kenshiro is fucking a G. I didn't realize because I thought, oh well, like JoJo just copied Fist of the North Star, and Fist of the North Star was the OG. Nah, bro. Like Fist of the North Star was Mad Max. It was the original Mad Max, 1-for-1, especially the villains.
Figuring out which executives to flatter or when to shut up and smile. Most people who make it to Gibson's level learned early that you treat the industry like a religion. You never forget that access requires submission. Gibson missed that entire education, but he did have some very real personal problems that began to unravel. His drinking is getting worse, his marriage is falling apart, his behavior is bordering on too eccentric, posing a risk for those around him. He also began making a name for himself as a homophobe and anti-Semite after a series of drunk conversations.
Yeah, that Jew stuff, bro.
Then he decides he's going to make a movie that's basically designed to detonate every relationship he has in Hollywood. I'm of course talking about The Passion of the Christ.
Think about the fact that The Passion of the Christ was the movie that people wanted to cut ties with him for. Making a movie about Jesus. That's crazy, right? Can you believe that? And so I've told this before. My mom probably took me to 3 movies in my life. The only one that I really remember, Passion of the Christ. That was the one, and she said, we're going to watch this in movie theaters. And I remember whenever we went there, it was a bunch of other fucking moms, Catholic moms with their kids, and the theater was so packed, we had to sit up in the front and go like this. We had to go like this the whole time. I remember that so well.
2002, he was planning a film about Jesus getting tortured, initially planning to shoot it entirely in Aramaic and Latin, dead languages that nobody can really understand. He didn't even want subtitles for it. So he starts taking meetings, Fox, Universal, Warner Bros, Disney, every major studio, 7 in total, and none are interested whatsoever. I
wonder why.
Part of it is about the commercial concern, but there's something else making studios nervous before he's even shot a single frame. The Anti-Defamation League, an American charity targeting anti-Semites, gets hold of an early script and immediately starts raising the alarm. The National
Passion relies on the theme of anti-Semitism. Man. That's crazy.
Director of the Anti-Defamation League said, quote, "By all appearances, Mr. Gibson has moved ahead with his plans to base his film based on the traditional Passion Play narrative that blames Jews for the killing of Jesus. For those who will see this film, the poisonous accusation that the Jews were responsible for the killing of Jesus will be unambiguous and clear. Gibson's already got baggage here. His father was a Holocaust denier, and when pressured, he said that my dad taught me my faith and I believe what he taught me. The man never lied to me in his life. So the criticism starts building. New York Times critic Frank Rich questions whether the film could fuel anti-Semitism. Gibson's response?
Oh yeah, people went so hard as fuck against this. Like, I remember this movie was so controversial. It was more controversial than Cuties. And I want y'all to think about that. So Cuties was a Netflix like movie that basically had like a bunch of young girls sexualizing themselves, and it was weird, right? But it was more controversial than that. What are the odds of that? Well, actually, they're pretty high. It's like 100%. But yeah, that's what happened.
He tells the New Yorker, "I want to kill him. I want his intestines on a stick. I want to kill his dog."
Fuck. Then Gibson explained his feelings about Rich. Is that right?
losing control, and every studio is watching it build into a PR nightmare. The funding dries up rapidly after that, and he practically becomes a laughingstock. He's putting his entire reputation in Hollywood on this movie. South Park then catches the zeitgeist with The Passion of the Jew. Stan and Kenny see the film, hate it, call it a snuff film, and track down Gibson for a refund. Their version of Gibson is completely unhinged, a masochistic lunatic running around shooting guns and literally defecating on people. Gibson's response at the time was defiance. He self-finances the entire production.
Paid for the entire fucking thing, $30 million of his own money. And this was in like the early 2000s. So like the equivalent of this is like $100 million. Like he went so hard on this. It was crazy.
Mortgaging property, coming up with $45 million.
Oh, 45. Oh my God.
Out of his own pocket. If this bombs, he's then personally destroyed. So the film opens on Ash Wednesday, 2004.
Man, I remember that's crazy. I think back on that. Yeah.
Critics are split. There are massive protests outside theaters, but also massive lines of people wanting to see it. It then goes on to gross $83 million in its opening weekend, and goes on to make $612 million worldwide.
There's a lot of Christians out there. That's crazy. Today's Ash Wednesday today? Wait, is it really? I didn't even know that. As I said, I put it down. If the Pope funds a crusade for us to go and protect the Christians in Africa, I go back to Mass. That's my line in the sand. That's where I'm at.
Grossing R-rated film at the time. Gibson then personally walks away with somewhere between $400 and $475 million.
And that's what really made the hoes mad. That's what really made them mad. It's the fact that they all went against him. This guy went all in, literal leap of faith. $45 million of his own money in 2003, 2004. I forgot what it said. I think it said 2004. He did all of this, and then he made $400 fucking million. That's what really made them mad. That's what pissed them off.
So from the industry's perspective, he has now made...
Because it shows a crack in the matrix. It shows a crack in the fabric of the illusion that's created, that making things that are central around, the Christian faith or Catholicism is somehow not possible, not feasible, not financially viable. It just takes all that and rolls it up and smokes it. And that's the reason why they're fucking mad.
One of the most profitable films in history, even after every major studio rejected it entirely on his own terms. On the Joe Rogan Experience, Gibson talked about how turbulent this was.
That was a crazy movie because it was a great movie.
Yeah, he remembers. He remembers. People were mad.
There was resistance to that movie.
There was so much resistance. Like, it was so controversial. People were angry as fuck.
Oh yeah, no, there was
which I thought was very strange. There was like Hollywood resistance to that movie.
Absolutely.
Like, people didn't like that you were making it. It seemed like
there was a lot of opposition to it, and I don't know. I think if you ever hit on that subject matter, you're gonna get people going, because
of course,
dude. Oh, God. Bro. You really had to hit him with that? Well. Oh, my God.
it's big subject matter.
He even said how Hollywood was stunned by him walking around the system and scoring a massive hit without going through the usual channels.
And there was this kind of thing in town.
Someone in chat called him Goydemort.
The town, they said, did anyone just see that? Anyone just see what that guy did? can't let that guy do that again.
Yeah.
Because it sort of walked around the entire system.
It was a well-received podcast because Gibson, for all his woes, came across as more down-to-earth than your average massive star. Comments observed that he was holding back on topics that people wouldn't be prepared to hear about.
And that's the crazy thing, is that after this recent Epstein files drop, and after they brought out all the files, I think people owe this guy an apology. I think they do. They got to say, listen, man, maybe you were right about some of these things. That's crazy. Wow, what are the odds of that?
Passion ultimately took its toll on Gibson, and 2 years later, everything fell apart. In 2006, he got pulled over drunk in Malibu, and during the arrest, he goes on this anti-Semitic run to the
I remember very clearly, like, it's funny, I think about this. I remember very clearly my dad and I were talking about this while we were driving to Wendy's.
which leaked. Gibson then apologized and admits he's an alcoholic, calling his behavior despicable. He pleaded no contest to misdemeanor DUI, received 3 years probation, and immediately pushed out carefully worded apologies through his publicist.
The court says the 53-year-old Gibson successfully completed terms of his 3-year probation. Gibson was arrested for driving drunk in Malibu in July of 2006, and during the arrest, the actor-director made derogatory comments about Jews and women, tried to escape, and repeatedly threatened the arresting deputy.
While also admitting to being an alcoholic for decades.
Because you're dealing with a sort of a malady of the soul, an obsession of the mind, and a physical allergy. And some people need a big tap on the shoulder. In my case, public humiliation on a global scale seems to be what was required.
But it was all just damage limitation, and the industry's response is instant and total. To everyone who criticized his views, this DUI and his unsavory run
total fucking
was just the smoking gun. Apocalypto, a film he directed and one of his best, was already in post-production, and its release was pushed back to avoid negative press. But after that, the upper echelons of Hollywood were closing ranks.
That was like the last movie he was really doing, and like that was a movie he directed. I remember watching that movie. I watched that movie with my mom. You know what? It's actually like, damn, I haven't thought about this for a long time. The last movie that I remember my mom watching was Apocalyptico. Like back before she went to the hospital. Like it was because I remember I went in there and we were watching the first half of it. I didn't think about that. But yeah. It was terrifying. Yeah, I remember the first time I watched that shit scared the fuck out of me. Absolutely.
After Ari Emanuel, one of the most powerful agents in the industry, publishes an open letter calling for everyone to boycott Gibson. Quote, Hollywood should not do business with Mel Gibson until he demonstrates a real understanding.
People in the entertainment industry, whether Jew or Gentile,
of the harm he has caused. Being drunk doesn't make you say things you don't believe. It makes you say things.
Sometimes it does.
Things you already believe. If this industry looks the other way,
that's why I don't get drunk.
It's a message that success excuses hate. And then things got worse. In July of 2010, Mel Gibson then found himself at the center of another major scandal when audio recordings surfaced from a phone call with his then partner. In the recordings, Gibson makes an explicitly racist remark suggesting that if she was assaulted, it would be somehow her fault. In the same conversation, he's also heard threatening to burn down her house while she was inside of it. And apparently there were actually some 35 minutes of deranged phone calls that leaked to the press in total.
Yep.
I don't work around in tight clothes. I stay at home for most of the time.
Public, and it's an embarrassment to me. You look
Man.
like a bitch on heat, and if you get by a pack of it'll be your fault. All right? Because you provoked it. A reporter to the people that take fucking money from the wetbacks, okay? Pat in the side of the head. All right? How about that?
You're racist as hell.
I'm threatening. I'll put you in a rose garden. You.
Holy shit.
Because I'm capable of it. You understand?
The fact that she recorded
He's
all of
on
this
one.
says a lot. And as the situation escalated, he was legally barred from coming near her or their daughter under a domestic violence-related
that makes
restraining
sense.
order.
Yeah.
Those 6 years of major scandals shattered Mel Gibson's career. Nobody would touch him.
Yep.
From 2006 to 2016, Mel Gibson appeared in one film called The Edge of Darkness, a film where he plays a man who discovers that powerful institutions are conspiring to cover up crimes. And
Is that right?
He's the lone truth seeker willing to die to expose them. Whether intentional or not, it was a perfect mirror into how Gibson saw himself.
That's crazy.
Around that time, accusations of game playing surrounding Gibson's exile from Hollywood began to surface too. When Ari Emanuel published the letter demanding that Gibson would be expelled from Hollywood,
and by the way, remember what I said about the wizard thing? Remember what I said? See?
It's represented by Ed Lamato at ICM. So Emanuel's taking this principled stand while actually kneecapping a rival's agency's biggest star. In 2009, Lamato moves to William Morris, bringing Gibson with him, and the agencies merge. Suddenly, Gibson is now Emanuel's client through that same veteran agent. So does Emanuel drop him on principle? No. He keeps him quietly on the books, and nobody says anything about the contradiction until he was booted from the books again following the episode between him and his wife. While Gibson was slinking around the fringes of Hollywood, in 2007, Robert Downey Jr. stood up for him, and this was when
fucking based.
Veteran agent. So does Emanuel drop him on principle? No. He keeps him quietly on the books, and nobody says anything about the contradiction until he was booted from the books again following the episode between him and his wife. While Gibson was slinking around the fringes of Hollywood, in 2007, Robert Downey Jr. stood up for him, and this was when
fucking based. Crash out, recognize, crash out. So true. Yep.
When things began to turn around.
I humbly ask that you join me, unless you are completely without sin, in which case you picked the wrong industry, in forgiving my friend his trespasses, offering him the same clean slate you have me, and allowing him to continue his great and ongoing contribution to our collective art without shame.
Jodie Foster and Whoopi Goldberg also publicly defended him. Whoopi said that he spent many days with her kids.
She used to be cool. I don't know what the hell happened. She used to be so cool. Like I've probably seen like 15 movies with Whoopi Goldberg. Like I don't know what happened.
And that he categorically wasn't racist.
But I know Mel, and I know he's not a racist.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I do. But I can't sit and say that he's a racist, having spent time with him in my house with my kids. I can't say it.
He was going through intense therapy at the time and seemed very keen to rehabilitate himself and his public image. But Robert Downey Jr.'s point hits on an extremely important point about the industry, bringing us right back to Gibson's own comments from 1998, involving the producer who wanted women either naked or dead. This is now widely suspected to refer to Harvey Weinstein.
You know what I think is funny? Is it's probably another one. It probably actually wasn't Harvey Weinstein. It's probably another guy. But what do you think the odds are that he's the only one? Really? Like, what do you think about that?
Years before this became public. While the wheels are coming off Gibson's career, Weinstein is operating openly. Allegations followed him for years. People like Tarantino surrounded him. There were whispers at parties, jokes about it at award shows, and shockingly acknowledged behind closed doors, and yet nothing happened. Courtney Love makes a joke about him in 2005.
Yeah, this was crazy about him asking you to go somewhere, don't go. Yeah, I remember this.
Do you have any advice for a young girl moving to Hollywood? I'll get live with it. Harvey Weinstein invites you to a private party in the Four Seasons downtown.
And this joke effectively blacklisted her from Hollywood. Weinstein kept working until 2017, until 80 women...
Didn't they? I heard that Peter Jackson made that one orc in the Siege of Minas Tirith. I heard that he made the orc based off of this guy. I don't know if that's true or not, but it's what I want to believe.
Came forward.
It is what I want to believe.
Exposes decades of abuse
Gothmog, there it is.
By Hollywood in the aftermath. But
he's
also
just
the
one
dragon, of many.
The flightless
Roman
dragon.
Polanski pleaded guilty to unlawful sex with a 13-year-old in 1977.
Not
when
good.
He then fled the country. At the 2003
Not good at all.
Oscars, 26 years later, he wins Best Director and gets a standing ovation.
So he gets a standing ovation after he rapes a 13-year-old? Huh. That seems pretty bad. That seems not so good.
Roman Polanski, for the pianist.
Woody Allen faces allegations from his adopted daughter. Court documents later show nearly 100 meetings with Jeffrey Epstein. Police.
I had no idea. Island? What island? What do you mean? That's a lot of meetings.
Never left the big time and still regularly makes blockbusters.
He does.
Filmmaker Bryan Singer faced multiple allegations and settled lawsuits, yet he kept on getting hired. Bohemian Rhapsody won 4 Oscars not long ago. The list is pretty much endless, and if anything, it gets...
And keep in mind, like, I'm trying to remember this about Bohemian Rhapsody. That movie, didn't Sacha Baron Cohen turn down playing Freddie Mercury because they wanted to play like a PG version of it and not actually the story of Freddie Mercury? Like, I'm trying to remember this. This is a long time ago. So that was some bullshit too, huh? Man, I don't think that's true. I feel like, honestly, like, I usually don't remember shit the wrong way.
Worse the deeper you look.
Could be
Victor
wrong.
Salva was convicted in 1988 for sexually abusing a 12-year-old. He
15 months in prison? Wait, why? I feel like that should be longer than this. I mean, you read this, right? Serve 15 months in prison after pleading guilty to lewd and lascivious conduct, oral sex with a person under 14, and for procuring a child for pornography. Like, I feel like you should go to jail for like 15 years. Like, you should be lucky that you get out of this with your organs. What are we talking about? What the hell's going on?
served only 15 months. And then Hollywood kept on hiring him to direct children's movies. They kept separating art from artists when it's convenient. Dan Schneider, all these guys, which sends...
Remember that fat Nickelodeon piece of shit?
Very clear economic message. Employing problematic people is fine as long as they continue to serve the right ends.
As long as it's not the wrong problems.
This isn't a game of whataboutery. Hollywood is a system where morals are relative. It's not about the severity of what you did, it's about how politically expensive it becomes to ignore it. Gibson's anti-Semitism and abuse, especially in an industry full of Jewish people, is unforgivable to many, and Robert Downey Jr.'s plea for mercy doesn't really erase that. But Hollywood didn't exile him because those things are morally worse than drugging and...
No, they were against him ever since he did The Passion of the Christ. I think that really is what it was. And like before then, he was like he was kind of like Donald Trump was before he ran for president, where like everybody knew kind of he was like a bit of a crazy asshole, but people generally had like a more than favorable opinion of him. People liked him. But then after Passion of the Christ, people really tried to figure out reasons for why he was a bad dude. Like I think that's what it was. Tom Cruise prequel? Yeah, maybe, right?
Assaulting people or fleeing the country after pleading guilty to raping a child.
That's crazy.
They exiled him because his scandals were loud, public, and impossible to spin. The industry is selective.
I mean, honestly, like I feel like it's not even that. I mean, I totally, actually, I disagree with this. I think that they made it bigger than it was. Because, like, there's no universe where somebody hating Jews and saying the N-word is worse than, like, having... I don't even like to say having sex with. It's raping a 13-year-old, right? Like, that is... There's no universe where that's worse. It's not even close.
About who becomes the boogeyman, and that selection has nothing to do with who actually did the worst things. Gibson's redemption arc continued in...
they made it that bad. They, like, I mean, this is all collective. Like, you think the people in media and the people that work in like fucking PR don't work with these actors and work with producers? Like, obviously they do. It's all a big club. Of course.
2016, when he released Hacksaw Ridge, a World War II film about a conscientious objector who saved 75 men without firing a weapon.
Oh,
he went on to receive 6 Oscar nominations. It was independently financed with no major studios involved, but this time, instead of punishing him, they welcomed him back. Gibson appeared on The Late Show with Stephen Colbert. He called his past a rough patch, and he said that moment shouldn't...
And that's the thing is, I remember whenever Stephen Colbert did this, and I was like, you know, like, this is respectable, right? Like, this is the problem that I have. This is the reason why, like, it's been hard for me to, like, really hate Stephen Colbert. It's because, like, I feel like, you know, looking back on it, like 20 years, last 20 years, I've watched Stephen Colbert now for 20 years. For like 15 of those years, or at least the first 10, I really liked him a lot. I did. I thought he was great. And he did things like this that I thought were positive and good. I don't know what the fuck happened. I really don't. It's just sad, man. It's fucking sad.
Find the rest of my life.
Like, you went from doing shit like this and the Colbert Report to dancing around like a little fairy about the COVID vaccine. How the fuck does that happen? Really? How does that happen?
The crowd cheered, others said it wasn't enough. Slowly the roles came back, like Get the Gringo, Fat Man, Bloodfather, and Daddy's Home 2. And Gibson's appearances were generally viewed positively, even if they weren't anything like the massive titles he once starred in. Then, 2023, Gibson's name gets attached to The Sound of Freedom.
Uh-oh.
Film about child trafficking, starred by the same guy who played Jesus in The Passion. Gibson was serving as executive producer and recorded a promotional video warning
I've actually never watched this.
People about child trafficking. Originally, the film was acquired by 20th Century Fox, yet it was shelved after Disney acquired Fox in 2019. It had a budget of just some $15 million, and accusations that Hollywood was trying to blacklist came flooding in when it launched, with some saying that showings at popular cinema chains were cancelled or even sabotaged. The film itself leans heavily into the idea that influential people are involved in trafficking and the problem is just being covered up internationally. Something.
What are the odds of that? There's no way, right? There's no way they could all be in on it.
Gibson has certainly alluded to over the years.
There's no way.
One of the most disturbing problems in our world today is human trafficking, and particularly the trafficking of children.
Many scoffed at the notion.
Oh, here it is.
That pedophile rings were being run by rich elites. But as Jeffrey Epstein's operation has come into the light, the flight logs, the witness testimony, connections to world leaders and billionaires, this conspiracy theory has just become a fact the establishment tried to ignore for years. Around the film's release, viral quotes started spreading about Gibson's conspiratorial view, claiming he exposed elites drinking children's blood, Andrew comb harvesting, and satanic rituals. QAnon
Yeah? That right? How about that?
Type stories. Every single quote attributed to Gibson is fake. They trace only to yournewswire.com, a notorious misinformation site. Maybe it's part of yet another smear campaign designed to muddy Gibson.
So they're trying to make this guy look bad by giving him fake quotes?
Rehabilitation and feed tabloid headlines to keep his reputation questionable.
The fuck out of here.
Or maybe it's a manifestation of him becoming a symbol onto which both sides of the culture war paints their narratives. To some, he's a martyred truth teller. To others, a cautionary tale of when mental health issues.
I mean, I think obviously, like, I mean, here's my opinion about Mel Gibson. I like Mel Gibson a lot. He's a fucking, like, I mean, I was born 1990, right? I mean, like, I remember watching The Patriot on a VHS and my fucking CRT TV with my mom and dad, right? So, like, you're never going to get me to hate Mel Gibson, number one. There's, like, you're never going to get me to hate Mel Gibson. You're never going to get me to hate Michael Jackson. You're never going to get me to hate Michael Jordan. You're never going to get me to hate fucking, like, I'm trying to think if there's anybody else. But, like, that's a three right there. And so, like, Braveheart, yep, same thing, absolutely 100%. So, you know, again, Jackie Chan, yeah, you're not going to get me to hate Jackie Chan. Some weird shit, I don't give a fuck. Jackie Chan's a legend. And so, yeah, anything else? Bruce Willis, yep, definitely. I go on. Arnold Schwarzenegger, yeah, 100%. I do think, obviously, like, he had a drinking problem, and that was a bad thing, and it was not good. And I think, in a way, it was probably a good thing that he got ostracized, because it's like, you know, and I bet he probably would say this himself. Because, like, you know, you say, oh, God works in mysterious ways, right? I mean, if he didn't have that happen, he might not have never like gone after and got help, and he might have fucked up his whole life. He might have gotten put in jail. He might have gotten himself killed. He could have, you know, like maybe permanently damaged his body. Like, because there are people that have that happen. Does it actually? I don't know if he does or not, but like it's a wake call. So like it's not like he was perfect, right? But I think also there's another component to this that's worth talking about, which is the fact that, you know, why is it that, you know, maybe he was doing this a lot, Well, if you get put in a position where you have to constantly deal with people that think women should either be naked or dead or both, and you're talking about these like satanic cults and like these weird kids and all this shit, that's going to fuck your head up. It really is. It's obviously going to fuck your head up. So it's like, I don't think that, like, I'm not saying it's not his fault. At the end of the day, it's still his fault. But I think that probably being around that fucks you up too. It does.
Anger take hold of someone. Either way, the fake quotes spread because they sound like what people already believe about him. That was South Park's parody too. They were saying Gibson made this very public monster out of himself. In reality, the truth behind Gibson's criticism...
I mean, if he made the monster out of himself, then why is it that those other people that were having, you know, raping underage girls, why did they not? It's because you made it happen. You pull the strings and then you say that it's his fault.
Of the establishment is probably more of a case of something simpler yet no less horrifying. The banality of evil. Thousands of people making small, cowardly decisions that add up to systemic abuse. Which is far more disturbing because...
That's what happens with the government, by the way. Like fraud and shit like that, that's the banality of evil. It's like 50 people with malicious compliance.
Implicates everyone through their daily choices in supporting and protecting the industry. Unlike blood-drinking rituals, everyone is capable given the right incentives. When asked at the Hacksaw Ridge press conference to describe Hollywood in one word, Gibson laughed. Just one word? Then he gave his answer, survival. He's right. Everyone's trying to survive, and survival means making calculations about who you can cross and who you can't. But Hollywood's evil operates on a different level altogether. It's not the deranged actions of a troubled man. It's structural, institutional. It's the sober, calculated decision.
I think it's also like, I mean, ever since Harvey Weinstein happened, I feel like the amount that people want to hear about actors talking about politics or whatever the fuck else, I feel like it went down by a lot. Like, I'm gonna be honest, like, I mean, because if you can't, like, I don't want to hear about your moralization whenever you turn a blind eye to this stuff happening, right? I don't want to hear about it. Like, not, you know, it's like, it's an example, like, even best case scenario, right message, wrong messenger. Nope, not from you.
Protect people for decades. So in the end, there are no heroes in the story, just different flavors of the same human capacity to harm people and justify it in the morning.
No, I totally agree. I love this video. This is a great video. Like, I'm glad to see people, I really think that, honestly, a lot of people owe him an apology. Especially, like, the worst thing to me was what happened to him with Passion of the Christ. Like, W. Moon. Yeah, Moon makes great videos. He pumps these out, too. He puts a lot of these videos out. And I think that they're pretty high quality. I like them a lot. Make sure to give it a like. Give him a sub if you haven't already. He's got over 1 million subs. He could use some more. Yeah, Ricky Gervais bombed Hollywood at Grammys. Yeah, he did. And people never forget that. Absolutely. So I make all my decisions based on what Billie Eilish says. Well, I mean, again, I don't really blame her because, like, she's young, right? So, like, she wasn't involved whenever that stuff happened. But, like, that was just stupid for different reasons. But, like, yeah, overall, that's the way I feel about it. What are your thoughts on some of the deaths and suicides of high-profile actors like Robin Williams and Chester Bennington were really murders? So people also, like, add in, because, like, it's those two. And it's also Anthony Bourdain. That's right. People said the same thing about him. I don't really know what to think about it, if you want me to be honest. I really don't know what to think about it. I don't know what to go with it or anything else. I don't. Like, I don't know what to think. Like, Chris Cornell? Yeah. Damn, I forgot all about that. And so the lady from Purse Company, a lot of people have had that happen. And so, like, to me, what do I think about it? I don't really have a lot to think about it because I don't know a lot about it, right? I mean, like, I don't know. Because, like, I don't want to take and, like, invalidate a person's mental problems and, like, mental struggles and say that, oh, it was just a big conspiracy and they killed you or something like that. Because I think that there are people that have mental health problems and it is legitimate and that's the reason why they did it. It's not some sort of fucking Illuminati. It's just a tragedy. But I think that, you know, with Robin Williams, I think for sure, not for sure, but, like, I'm more certain that that's the case. Chester Bennington, like, there were some things that happened before he died that, like, may be uncertain. Same thing with Anthony Bourdain. But, like, I don't think that there's enough evidence that at least I've seen that's public for me to say that, yeah, for sure, that's what happened.
But that's exactly why the system must remain uncensored. If Valve starts deleting reviews because a developer finds them,
and also, like, keep in mind that all of this is done from the perspective of the seller. This is the commercial perspective. They're not thinking about the user. They're not thinking about whether the user is getting a good understanding of what they're buying. They don't care about what the user's perspective is. This is all about, you know, the industry. It's all about, you know, media and how media feel. The moment that you start making decisions for a group of people that's not your core customer and your end customer is the moment that your business starts failing. Now, it might not be immediate, but it is inevitable.
Sincere or bigoted, where does it stop? Does a review complaining about woke characters get deleted?
Yeah.
What about a review complaining about bad optimization that the dev claims is fixed? What about a review that,
like Monster Hunter Wilds,
that calls a dev lazy? The moment Valve begins verifying accuracy, every developer on the platform will flood them with tickets demanding the removal of every negative review that isn't 100% technical.
Exactly. And it will waste everybody's time.
We would see the death of the mixed rating. Every game would just be
Stop protecting vulnerable groups instead of protecting customers. Well, that's a false premise. There are no vulnerable groups. If you're too vulnerable that you can't read a Steam review and you're going to have to end up killing yourself, then you need to get off the internet and you need to be committed to a mental institution immediately. Immediately, you need to be committed to a mental institution. Like, I'm not gonna turn the world into a padded room just because some people won't go in one. No. Deal with it, pussy.
Overwhelmingly positive because any negative review would just get deleted. The report quotes developer Fee saying to us, it seemed that in Steam's view, hateful comments about an individual is abuse, but targeting it towards a group of people is totally fine. And while that sounds harsh, it reveals the core of the friction. Steam treats groups as topics. If you make a game about a specific political identity, the community is going to discuss that identity. You cannot invite the world.
It's part of the game
To look at your art and then demand they only speak about it in ways you find safe. But for
exactly, I love this guy.
the consumer, Steam is a marketplace of ideas. When you see a game with mostly negative reviews, it's just a large warning. Sometimes that warning is about bugs, sometimes it's about a developer's behavior, and sometimes it's about the woke content the developer is pushing. The point is, the customer gets to decide what information is relevant to them. So the Guardian article concludes with Lawhead saying...
And you can easily look at a review, like for example, Monster Hunter Wilds is a great example of this. So if you, like, I have a great computer. I do. I have an amazing computer. And because of that, I never had to deal with any of the issues that Monster Hunter Wilds had with performance because my 5090 could run it anyway. But other people did. So whenever I saw the negative reviews, I just saw them and I was like, ah, shit. Okay, well, I guess this is just because performance. I guess the game will be okay for me, right? So, like, if you just look at a number, like, isn't that also the user error? Did you finish Kazan? I never did, actually.
This shouldn't be normal, but for millions of people who use Steam every day, this is the normal they want. They want the raw, unfiltered, and sometimes ugly truth of the community's opinion. Steam's refusal to moderate accuracy isn't a failure of the system. It's actually a feature that keeps the system honest. So Valve has made its choice. They are choosing the chaos of the public square over the safety of the gated community.
There's no safety of the gated community, because the safety of the developers is the danger of the user. Like, basically, you're sparing a developer's feelings, so potentially millions of people could make a bad purchasing decision and be out $30. And now you have to deal with the refund system. Now you're thinking about this. So, like, it's another emotional manipulation inversion. So you're trying to say that you getting your feelings hurt is more important than, damn, that's a big ass spider. He respawned. I forgot what happened to him. Now he's back. So anyway, your feelings as a developer are more important than the money of your customers. That's what it is. Show it? I don't know. It's like white or something like that. Who gives a fuck?
As long as they do, Steam will remain the only place where the users, not the corporations, have the final word.
That's
but
right.
overall, what do you think?
Oops, sorry about that. I mean, that's basically the end of the video, to be fair. But like,
is Valve justified in protecting mean reviews to avoid censorship?
They absolutely
30 years
are,
ago,
by the way. They 100% are. It's
group
not
of
even
developers-
a question. Like, they absolutely
30 years
are,
ago,
by the way. They 100% are. It's
group
not
of
even
developers-
a question. Like, Steam is one of the only companies that's actually consumer first. Because fundamentally what these other people want is not consumer first. They don't care about the consumer. They don't want to help the consumer. They want to patronize, demonize, and negatively treat the consumer as some sort of adversary that must be overcome. Like, how can we overcome the consumer? How can we find a way to make this, you know, like this stupid consumer believe what we think that they should think? And that's it. Fuck that, man. Yeah, they hate the consumer. They do. They hate the consumer. They patronize the consumer, and they ultimately resent, and they, I think they hold the consumer in contempt. And the thing is that also they want to, this is one thing that's really important, is that there is a false premise, again, that we're the ones pushing the culture war. That's not true. They want to push their culture war, and they don't want anybody else to respond. They want to be the only people that have, you know, any ability to speak out about this. Like, whenever they say culture war, they're already winning the culture war because they're making this game and they're being protected. But whenever there's a gap in the armor here, right? There's a crack in the dam. Now it's a big problem because it shows the flaws. Projecting no way. Yeah, they are the ones that started this culture war. These are parasites that have infested video games and media, and they make it impossible to get away from their message about trans people or about gay people or black people or whatever. And these are even messages that in a lot of cases I agree with. I just don't want to hear them when I'm playing a game about medieval fucking samurai. Like, I don't want to hear about feudal. I don't want to hear about, you know, how hard it is to be a woman whenever I'm playing a game about being, you know, a samurai for Oda Nobunaga. I don't want to hear that. It's not part of the fucking story. Shut the fuck up. So that's how I see it. And totally agree on that. Absolutely, I do. And they're even going to do that. The thing is, too, they'll do this with pricing. They'll do it with performance. They'll do anything that they can. There's the video. Make sure to get this. Like, Water CS2 makes a lot of videos. He, you know, obviously a huge fan of Valve, and I am too. I totally support him. I support Valve. I think they're totally making the right decisions. And these shitty fucking companies, this UK rag that's sitting around trying to make bullshit, this shouldn't be normal. Why don't you shut the fuck up? Maybe you shouldn't be making video games like this. How about that? And also, like, who decides what's normal? Oh, I wonder, the thing that most people think in the entire world shouldn't be what's normal? Too bad. I don't think dogs should die. But they do, because that's the world. Get used to it, bitch. That's too bad. You want to hear that? They're so untalented, they can't tell a good struggle or women minority story? Well, I think that you're right about that. I mean, you're absolutely right. There's a lot of good stories. Like, for example, if a studio like Rockstar was making like what they were making that Assassin's Creed game that was like a post, like abolition, like, which is slavery, right? But post-slavery, like, you know, let's say 1880s, and you're like a black guy that's fighting like KKK members and, you know, like other types of racists trying to, like, you know, survive and help other black people. I think that'd be fucking goated. It would be amazing. But the truth is that a company like Ubisoft, they don't have the narrative, and they don't have the maturity to tell a story like that in a way that is respectful, clever, and not patronizing. They don't have the skill. Django Unchained would be a really good example of it being possible. Yeah, I love Django Unchained. I probably watched that movie 20 times. Like, over the years, I've watched it 20 times. I've watched Inglourious Basterds probably 50 times. So it's not that you can't do it, because, yeah, again, Django Unchained proved this isn't true. It's just that this company can't fucking do it. And that's it.
Uh-oh, Logan Paul is being called a scammer again. Wow, would you look at that? The sky is blue today as well. So, I mean, unfortunately, Logan Paul has everything needed to succeed as a well-liked entrepreneur, except he chooses to not be liked. To me, it seems like the dude just chooses to wake up every single day, and instead of providing value, he chooses to figure out some way to extract value. I mean, just look at what the guy has done to the Pokemon card economy. Logan saw a market that was primed to inflate, used to his advantage, and wring out every single cent possible. And now he's showing no signs of stopping. It's giving Tulip Mania for sure, because there's only so many people that would want to spend $16 million on a Pokemon card that has some questions regarding its grading. But I mean, the dude has been traveling the world and collecting Pokemon cards, and he's been synonymous with many things over the years. Force in Japan, failed crypto projects, Pokemon cards, and greed unlike any influencer I've ever seen. And now he's back at it again, making headlines yet again. Because this time he sold his infamous PSA 10 Pikachu Illustrator card for a whopping $16.5 million. And there are a bunch of people online who claim that Logan actually had zero right to do that, both morally and legally. And not only that, he's also already pushing his next digital Pokemon card project before the last one is even blown over. So do you guys remember this card? The one he made his entire personality. The one he allegedly spent $5.3 million on. The one he set the Guinness World Record on and wore to WrestleMania.
You might have seen the card I was wearing around my neck.
This is the rarest card in the entire world. The most valuable Pokemon card in the entire hobby.
The holy grail right here.
See, when I first started in Pokemon, like most curious collectors, I looked up the most expensive Pokemon card. And this was it. The Pikachu Illustrator.
So this is apparently the quote-unquote rarest Pokemon card of all time. Once it was just a fable, whispered among collectors and fans alike. Now, I guess it just serves a questionable way for Logan Paul to obtain wealth, and I guess his need to throw it around for reasons unknown.
$16 million.
16 million. Oh, 16 million. 16.1, baby.
Well, what's actually the problem, besides the fact that $16.5 million for a single Pokemon card is absolutely insane? Well, we could start with the fact that Logan technically isn't supposed to own the card, at least fully outright, or at least not more than, roughly half of it. Because if you're confused about how anyone else could own parts of his card while it's clearly iced out around his neck in his possession, don't worry, I'll explain. Because Liquid Marketplace, that was introduced in 2021 to 2022 as a way for regular people to co-own top-tier assets like expensive trading cards and NFTs. So instead of just one rich guy hoarding these expensive assets, you now have multiple rich guys hoarding expensive assets, but then normal people can buy digital IOU tokens to, I guess, owning these digital assets that these rich guys are hoarding. What could go wrong? Apparently a whole lot.
So you may have seen me introduce myself as a co-founder of Liquid Marketplace. I think our team is what solidifies us as one of the most dominant fractionalization co-ownership platforms. We have the most elusive, top-tier, rarest assets in the world for the entire world to co-own.
Yes, I will be listing this card on a platform that I co-founded called Liquid Marketplace.
Co-own on Liquid Marketplace. The one and only PSA 10 Pikachu Illustrator now available on Liquid Marketplace.
So the premise is simple. Liquid Marketplace could hold on to the physical item in their vault and sell shares of these items in the form of tokens on their website. It sounds eerily similar to a new thing that he's promoting called Rip It, but we'll get into that later on in this video. So Logan has essentially referred to himself as the co-founder of Liquid Marketplace on numerous occasions, and even went as far to promote the fact that you would be able to be a part owner of his super rare PSA 10 Pikachu Illustrator Pokemon card through the site. So if the allure of a possible financial gain wasn't enough, Logan also sold fans on the idea that by purchasing digital shares of this card, you were also a part of the world record, and even part of his WrestleMania walkout, and even a part of Pokemon history. I mean, who in the Low Gang wouldn't want that? And because, he was reportedly selling 51% of the card on Liquid Marketplace, that meant that he wasn't supposed to be able to make decisions without majority approval. Things like, say, auctioning off on a live stream while yelling and banging a gong.
What are we at? Current bid on the Illustrator, $12 million.
But naturally, some of Logan's fans bought into this hype, so much so that he allegedly fractionalized roughly 51% of it for a reported $2.6 million. But you'll see Logan heavily denies this on Twitter. So who knows if it really happened, but this is what the streets are saying, you know, because, hey, I'm just a villager idiot. I'm just reporting on what's going on. But like many other crypto NFT marketplaces that were created during the NFT boom, Liquid Marketplace pretty quickly had its fair share of problems. A big one being the lack of liquidity on Liquid Marketplace. The irony does write itself, which is kind of beautiful in this moment. But allegedly, users couldn't withdraw funds, and features that were promised on launch were yet to be added. And on top of that, no one was getting any information on what was even happening. And naturally, Liquid Marketplace eventually failed. And currently, it's facing fraud charges from Canada's Ontario Securities Commission. Logan Paul, it's worth noting, and very important to note, is not involved in that investigation, though. Let me just repeat that because I'm not trying to get backhanded here, but Logan is not facing any charges from Canada's Ontario Securities Commission, as of recording this video at least. But this behavior might help explain the mismanaging going on behind the scenes, because he does have a track record of working with some shady types, to put it lightly. But of course, the value of the Pikachu Illustrator shares dropped as the site struggled, and Logan was allegedly able to buy them back for a fraction of the price due to an alleged clause. And this never personally reimbursed his fans, who essentially got rug pulled by him. And allegedly, he never really followed up on this either. According to him, he was told that when he bought back the shares for a reported $250,000, which is, you know, peanuts compared to the initial value, that the money would be distributed to their fractional owners based on their respective percentages. You know, only a 90% loss there for all the holders, but at least Logan makes some money. But actually, scratch that. Allegedly, the 90% loss didn't even happen. It was basically 100% loss because they didn't see anything from that investment. Again, allegedly, the money just went poof. It was gone. As soon as it was sent to Liquid Marketplace, gone forever. So I guess no one got reimbursed, and I guess Logan Paul had no idea this whole time. But all of the tweets that Logan's been making in an attempt to do damage control are getting community noted with reminders that Logan himself boasted about being a Liquid Marketplace co-founder multiple times on multiple platforms. And he sort of is, reputationally at least, on the hook for some of these actions, especially in the early days. Because this definitely does not look good for his reputation nor his image. Because, I mean, this destroyed his reputation yet again. Because, I mean, it doesn't seem like people are just coming up with this stuff on their own. The clips are everywhere. So, of course, eyebrows started to raise when Logan announced that he was going to be selling the card in partnership with Golden Auctions, owned by Ken Golden, who is quite the character himself. Like, here's a quote from Twitter, from Dub Mentality. "Let me get this straight. If you don't like his company, you're too poor to buy from him. And you also don't like collectibles. Is that about it?" And then he quoted this video.
"You just don't understand the business and you just want to hate. What I find is the people that complain about stuff are the people that will never be my customers in the first place, normally do not have the money to spend to buy a single thing on golden.com. And they just want to and be bitter because they can't be happy. They want to tear down an industry. Maybe they missed the train. Maybe they have nothing better to do with their life. If you love collectibles, then you love this sale."
All right, dude. That was certainly a response. But Golden Auctions, they've already raised concerns from people online who seem to think they're not so legit. And immediately, all of the old partial owners of this card who thought they had the IOU tokens of this card, they were still waiting for some of their payouts and started to wonder if they would actually see any reimbursement from the sale that just happened, since, you know, they'd essentially been rug pulled by Logan's platform, in their opinion. Because people rightfully so called it unfair and not his card to sell, because wasn't he supposed to only be the 49% owner? And even if he bought back all the shares fair and square, but the problem is, you know, the investors allegedly didn't even get their shares or any money back for that buyback. So I don't know what's going on there. I feel like the coolest thing he could do here is just give all the investors their portion of that sale, because then he still pockets roughly $8 million from this, or, well, you know, after taxes less, but, you know, on paper he gets $8 million. And then he proves to the world, look at that, I did something that actually made people money. Why wouldn't he do that? Because these fans believed him, even after he proved time and time again to be, you know, less than trustworthy. Crypto Zoo. Dink doink. There's probably a handful of others I can't remember off the top of my head as well. But I guess in the end, it seems like Logan thinks he's off the hook, because in a recent tweet, Logan claims that even though he offered to sell up to 51% of the card on Liquid Marketplace, he only actually sold a measly 5.4% for about $270,000 in 2022. My main question is then, where is the $2.6 million from? Because that's a pretty big difference, to say the least. But I mean, with all the threads on Reddit, people showing themselves being blocked by Logan in real time, it feels like there's more than just a few people who allegedly lost some money here. But now they're all online, and some of them are trying to hold Logan accountable any way possible. And then you have others in the whole separate camp who consider themselves smarter for not falling victim to this ploy and are reminding people that apparently the site's terms and conditions said that they could decide to sell the item without consulting the shareholders. So it's sort of on them in their opinion. But overall, I mean, this just shows you why you should never put money in anything like this. So technically, by the terms, Logan had every right to sell the card for its outrageous price tag to an equally outrageous buyer, because the winning bid for the rare card was placed by the venture capitalist AJ Scaramucci, the son of former White House communications director Anthony Scaramucci. But for reasons I don't know, AJ Scaramucci is reportedly on a quest to collect the uncollectible. He reportedly also hopes to eventually buy a T-Rex dinosaur fossil and the Declaration of Independence on his planetary treasure hunt. And AJ was even ready nearby on the live stream to come receive his new card. Or chain, I guess. So that made a lot of people speculate, wait a second, was all this planned to begin with to build hype with an enormous sale around this site? I don't know. But whether it's for AJ's planetary treasure hunt or Logan's newest endeavor, ripit.co, I don't know. And speaking of, let's talk about the new project. So ripit.co is another website built around virtual card openings, except on Ripit, they're supposed to represent real physical packs that you can reportedly then choose to either sell for instant cash, store in their vault, or ship straight to your door. And I'm gonna be real here, but this sounds exactly like those hypebeast digital unboxing sites that his brother Jake Paul was promoting back in 2017. And I don't know about you guys, but to me, in my opinion, this kind of feels like gambling. Sure, one could argue that Pokemon cards are gambling, but having the immediate option to sell the cards for instant cash on this virtual unboxing website makes it seem a whole lot more like gambling to me. Seems like a big gray zone. But once again, Logan has his face comfortably plastered all across their branding and their website. So, will he scrub his ties with Ripit in a few years? Who knows?
Ripit is a new collectible platform co-founded by Logan Paul. Every single one of the first edition cards that are about to be pooled will be given away for free to those who join the waitlist for Ripit, including the guaranteed holographic card that could be a Charizard worth up to $550,000, maybe even more.
But the final allegation of this whole story, which Logan also denied on Twitter, is that he benefited from insider trading on Polymarket during the entire auction. But again, there's literally zero concrete evidence here. But a Twitter user did notice a Polymarket account with the same profile photo as the one Logan had, profiting off of some pretty interesting bets during the auction. So these would be some bets from someone who would have an idea of what the sale price would be going for. Now, is this a coincidence? Logan seems to think so. And yeah, I guess someone could have changed their profile picture to the same one as his so that allegations like this would get thrown around. That's not crazy to assume. But like I said, again, Logan denies these claims completely. And I'm not giving an opinion there unless we get some more evidence here. But all I do know is the hobby of collecting Pokemon cards, as it once was, is pretty much gone now. Normal people have unfortunately been priced out. Unless you buy a fractionalized promise, which honestly doesn't have a great track record either. Regardless though, I guess you could easily convince fans that buying into a Pokemon card or NFTs is a way to get rich. After all, he did just make millions. And the buyer tweeted about getting the card in the Pokemon Museum, which I guess is a great outcome from this. But at least for now, everything in this video are allegations and scorn fans venting about their frustrations and using blocks as proof that Logan is at fault. But I'm pretty sure he blocked me after I called him out for the whole Japan forest situation. So that was a minute ago. So I mean, I'm just guessing he pretty much blocks everyone who criticizes his garbage actions. But hey, you know, 2026 or year of the flaming horse, I think it is. I guess Logan Paul thought that was just a great year to destroy his reputation yet again. But who knows? knowing him, he'll probably be back with something else pretty soon. But regardless, I'm sure he has good enough lawyers that he would know if he's covered in a situation like this. But as you guys know, I'll be back with another video covering this if anything happens. So if you're new here, feel free to subscribe, drop a like if you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace. Newspaper, he said, "Courtney, no matter what happens, I want you to know you made a really good record." And according to Courtney, that was the last time they ever spoke. He then flew back to Seattle, and on a flight, he happened to sit right next to the Guns N' Roses bassist Duff McKagan. McKagan then later said that he felt something was off, and quote, "All of my instincts told me something was wrong." After learning he left his treatment, Love canceled his credit cards and hired a private investigator, Tom Grant, to track him down. Meanwhile, Cobain was reportedly seen around Seattle on April 2nd and April 3rd. On April 4th, his mother filed a missing persons report, telling police that she feared he might harm himself. And according to the police timeline, on April 5th, he returned to his home and went into the greenhouse above his garage. He then wrote a note, he left his wallet open, possibly for identification, and then sometime around that day, he passed away. He wouldn't be discovered for 3 more days though. And almost immediately, questions started popping up. A local journalist then started doing public access segments, suggesting the case didn't make sense, with one of the main points being there just wasn't enough blood on the scene. A private investigator later said that he believed there were inconsistencies in the timeline and in the evidence. Documentaries were then made and books were then written, but by the late 90s, the story had turned into a full-blown cultural debate. Then you had a documentary created called Kurt and Courtney, which then explored the theory. Then in 2014, on the 20th anniversary, Seattle police reviewed the case again. They developed rolls of film that hadn't been processed back in 1994. They re-examined the scene photos, and once again, they reaffirmed the original conclusion. Officially, nothing changed. But here's the thing, the conspiracy never really went away. And now, in 2026, it's back. Because a new independent forensic team says they've looked at the same materials and reached a very different conclusion. And this is where it starts getting weird again. So here's what's different this time. In early 2026, multiple news outlets reported that an independent research team had taken another look at the case. And I know, I'm talking about a private forensic group, but these are peer-reviewed, published findings, meaning a whole bunch of smart people who specialize in this kind of thing looked at it and gave it 2 thumbs up. So it seems short-sighted to just dismiss this. They reviewed crime scene photos, autopsy findings, and toxicology records. And after doing that, they claim the evidence fits a staged scene. Not a self-inflicted one, a staged one. That's a massive claim. To put it lightly, Michelle Wilkins, one of the researchers, said that the forensic specialist Brian Burnett reviewed the materials for several days and concluded the death was more consistent with homicide. That is massive. So here's what they're arguing. They claim the amount of substances in a system would have left him physically incapacitated. We're talking like 20x the OD limit, so that tracks. And according to their argument, someone in that condition would struggle to coordinate movement, let alone operate a firearm. Wilkins says that Cobain would have been in a near comatose state and barely able to breathe. Secondly, they point to what they describe as oxygen-related organ damage. They argue that certain signs of the autopsy are more consistent with someone who stopped breathing due to substances rather than someone who died instantly from a firearm injury. And then they point to the scene. They describe it eerily clean. They question why his hand, which was found wrapped around the part of the firearm, didn't show any kind of visible blood splatter as they expected. Wilkins said, in quote, "There is no universe where that hand is not covered in blood." They also questioned the organization of the substance kit found nearby, saying it looked way too neatly arranged. Their argument is essentially someone under extreme physical duress would not carefully cap needles and put equipment away. They then argue that the top portion reads like someone expressing frustration about music and fame. Then they claim the final lines appear visually different, larger, more rushed handwriting, and suggest that this could indicate tampering. And I mean, that is interesting because it seems like they're implying he wrote the letter about leaving music behind and someone else added onto it. So not gonna lie here, this looks weird. Looking at this note, I see what they mean. Suddenly, the writing gets really big and it looks a little different. But the team says they asked for the case to be reopened and authorities have responded. So the Seattle Police Department says the death was ruled self-inflicted and that remains their position. So the King County Medical Examiner's Office said they are open to reviewing new evidence, but they've seen nothing that would warrant reopening the case. So now we have two positions. The findings here are reanalysis of existing stuff that have been reviewed before. Sadly, without a new piece of evidence, they might not just be able to get the case reopened. The other side is the Seattle Police Department has had requests for this case to be reopened since the conclusion of it 30 years ago. The conspiracy side of the story has been around for almost as long as the official ruling, but a team of experts publishing a peer-reviewed analysis is still a lot more solid than 3 decades of conspiracy theories. But a lot of the stuff in the new report matches with a whole bunch of the theories that I mentioned earlier, like the public access host who said the police reports just didn't line up. He claimed there wasn't enough visible blood for what had happened, which is pretty similar to what the recent analysis said. Then you have Tom Grant, a private investigator who had been officially hired by Courtney Love during the chaos before Cobain's passing. And afterward, he publicly said that he believed the crime scene was staged. And his arguments focused on a few big things that are, once again, also in the official report. He questioned whether someone with that level of substances in their system could physically coordinate pulling a trigger. And he also questioned the lack of clear fingerprints on certain items. Tom Grant was also the guy who pointed to the things like tour money and industry contracts as financial motives. Then there's the documentaries. Nick Broomfield's film, Kurt and Courtney explored the theory in the late 90s. That film mentions one of the most popular theories, that Courtney Love orchestrated everything. And I mean, it could make sense that people thought that she had something to do with it, because especially during this time, they were always in the news for their music, but also their relationship issues.
Reports of frequent heated arguments surfaced, some escalating to physical altercations. On March 18th, police were called to their home in Seattle after an explosive fight. Cobain had locked himself in a room with a gun, threatening to take his own life. Officers managed to de-escalate the situation and seized several firearms from the house.
Even their daughter, Frances, once said, "I always knew their relationship was toxic. I don't promote having a fix-it baby," which is what I was, to fix their problems. That is so sad for a kid to say. But there are a lot of theories as to why she would. Some people think that, she was the handler. Others point to the fact that she gained his estate after he passed. But it is also very important to mention that Courtney Love did sign over the estate to Kurt's daughter, Frances, in 2012. But as of February 2026, his passing remains officially classified as self-inflicted. So whether this new report changes anything in the future, we don't know. And look, did Kurt Cobain openly have issues with depression and substances? Absolutely, yes. But I don't think that means that we should just ignore details that look very weird. And again, in this video, we are absolutely not accusing anyone of anything. We are just looking at the public details. But regardless, someone who's thinking about taking their own life can still be hurt by someone else. Those two things don't cancel each other out. But unfortunately, no one really knows what happened to him, not 100%. But it doesn't seem like the police department is going to look into it any further, at least for now. And honestly, that's kind of just a painful ending that some people still struggle to accept. And that's maybe why we're still talking about it. But regardless, I'll keep you guys updated if the Seattle Police Department opens this case back up. But in the meantime, I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.
It was Iowa State. The body cam was wild. Actually looked like a scene from Weapons. Oh, here we go. Raw video. UI body cam shows Frat's 2024 hazing incident.
That's what I want to
What are we out here for? Noise complaint or something? Oh no, that's a fire truck.
That's okay. Fire's here.
Alcohol poisoning? If it was alcohol poisoning, I don't think they would have got suited up. Okay, so probably not alcohol poisoning. Looking like a fire, maybe. Oh wow. What?
Does anyone want to be forthcoming on what's going on?
Anyway.
As advertised, that does feel like something straight out of Weapons, huh? This was 2024, so they certainly weren't doing the Black Beetle challenge either. Oh, wow.
camera of the Hubble Space Telescope, 4 points of dim light revealing the same supernova, framing the galaxies whose gravitational field had bent this light to us. After a 9.3 billion year journey, the images arrived in rapid succession, but other longer paths wove the space-time contortions of the surrounding galaxy cluster. Astronomers spun up their models and predicted a single explosive encore the following year. They waited, they prepared the Hubble, and 12 months later, there it was, the laggard after image of the supernova just as predicted. Ridiculous that we were even able to predict this, but more incredible is its scientific value. In a 1964 paper, Sieur Revsdahl pointed out that the time delay between gravitationally lensed supernova images can give us a way to measure the expansion rate of the whole universe. We've now done that with the eponymous supernova Revsdahl, but we've now also built this up into what may become the most powerful method for unlocking the nature of dark energy. We've got a couple of quick announcements before we start. First, our eternal battle against the algorithm continues. The best way to encourage YouTube to share our videos is to like and comment. Doing both really makes a difference. And if you're new here, subscribe, hit the bell, and introduce yourself in the comments. We're friendly. Next up, we're excited to launch our Composition of the Universe nickel and enamel pin, now with a holofoil backing. If you want to flex your knowledge of dark energy, dark matter, and the terrifyingly small slice of ordinary matter that you and our world is made of, check out our first pin of 2026. And if you prefer your mornings fueled by dark energy, we've also got a brand new dark energy mug. Plus, our UV Glow Kerr rotating black hole hoodies and shirts are still available. Links in the description. Now, onto the episode. We've known that the universe is expanding since 1929, and that expansion is accelerating since 1998. The culprit behind the acceleration is unknown, so we live with the stand-in term dark energy. Our modern cosmological model assumes that dark energy has a constant density, always the same amount of outward shoving stuff per volume of space. But there's recent evidence to the contrary, which may be why our primary efforts to measure the expansion rate of the universe disagree with each other. Let's review those methods. On the one hand, studying the oldest light in the universe, the cosmic microwave background, the CMB, gives us exquisite information about a time soon after the Big Bang. Combined with our cosmological model, we can predict how fast the universe should be expanding now, and that modern expansion is characterized as the Hubble constant. On the other hand, observations of supernova explosions allow us to track the expansion history in the relatively modern universe. Exploding white dwarf stars, type 1a supernovae, have very predictable intrinsic brightnesses, allowing us to determine distances based on how faint they appear to us, and those distances give us another measure of the Hubble constant, in a sense more directly measuring that modern expansion rate. If our measurements are good and our cosmological model is good,
I'm becoming
then
increasingly
the CMB
concerned.
and the supernova results should match, but they don't. The supernova program finds an expansion rate a few percent higher than the extrapolation of the CMB measurements. So either the CMB or the supernova result is flawed, or the cosmological model that we use to extrapolate between the two is wrong. This so-called Hubble tension has been lurking around for some years and stubbornly refuses to go away even as we improve our measurements. That hints that we may really need new physics in our cosmological model. For example, the model assumes constant dark energy, but what if dark energy really changes over time? But before we jump to conclusions, it's absolutely critical that we make independent measurements of the expansion history. The supernova results are particularly vulnerable to systematic errors because they need to be bootstrapped off a series of distance calibration steps, more room for weak links in the calculation chain. Now, some would say, me included, that one of the most promising independent methods is something called time delay cosmography. This is the method outlined by Sir Rifstall and was applied to the eponymous supernova. But it turns out that we can use a different type of cosmic cataclysm that's actually far brighter and more common than the supernova, the quasar. And the best time delay cosmography has been done with quasars. So I will start by talking about quasars, but supernovae do have a bright future in this field, as we'll see. So a quasar is what you get when a supermassive black hole in the center of a galaxy enters a feeding frenzy, as happens from time to time. Active galactic nucleus is the more general term, and quasars are the bright ones that we care about. So, matter driven into the galactic core is caught in the colossal gravitational field and spirals in to feed the black hole. The gas also generates such prodigious heat on its way that these accretion disks glow bright enough to be seen across the universe. Quasars are messy eaters. The infalling material comes in fits and bursts, and the bright central region fluctuates wildly. This causes the entire beast to flicker on timescales of hours to months. By itself, a quasar isn't great for measuring distances, but if we introduce a new level of chaos, then the magic happens. In Einstein's universe, light does not travel to us in straight lines. Mass curves spacetime, and light is bound to follow those curves. We see the effects of this gravitational lensing everywhere in the universe. Most of the lensing is subtle, manifesting as changes in brightness and warping of shapes, but in rare cases, a gravitational lens is so perfectly situated between us and the distant source that the latter's light follows multiple paths to reach us. We literally see the same object through different paths through space, and that looks like duplications of the source around the lens. This is strong lensing, and strongly lensed quasars are going to become our new cosmic expansion tracker. The 2 or 4 different paths taken by the quasar's light are different lengths, and so the light that we see in each of the images has taken a different amount of time to reach us. So although we're looking at the same quasar in each image, we're looking at the quasar as it was at slightly different times, and this is where the quasar variability comes in. The brightness fluctuations are pretty random, but they still form distinct patterns in the light curve, the plot of brightness over time. If we can record the light curves of different images in one lensed quasar, then we can find where the light curve patterns match up, and that gives us the time difference of the paths for the different images. We call this the time delay. That in turn gives us a way to measure the actual distances to the lens and to the quasar. This is just the first level description. Let's dig deeper because it's not as easy as it sounds. First up, the actual math is based on Fermat's principle of least time. Light will always take the path between 2 points that takes the least time. This can be used to derive the bending of light by regular lenses, but it also applies to gravitational lenses. The paths taken in a gravitational lens represent local minima in the light travel time, paths for which the photon, if deviated slightly, would take longer to reach us. The path lengths give us one aspect of the time delay. The other is the Shapiro or gravitational time delay. Just passing through different parts of the galaxy's gravitational field leads to an additional time difference. The resulting time delay formula is surprisingly simple for such a complex system, and the most important thing about this expression is that the front term scales with the Hubble constant, with the expansion speed of the universe. That means the time delay goes straight to a Hubble constant measurement, and none of this depends on a chain of other distance measurements. Well, sounds too easy. So why hasn't this become the standard for measuring cosmic expansion over the supernova method? Well, several reasons actually. One is the rarity of good gravitationally lensed quasars. These objects are rare already due to the precise alignment needed between observer, lens, and quasar, and most lensed quasars aren't actually great for this purpose due to the next issue, modelling the lensing galaxy. This is by far the biggest challenge. Galaxies make pretty terrible lenses compared to, say, precision ground glass lenses. They are lumpy, irregular objects made of stars and dark matter, and in order to properly calculate time delays, we need to know the gravitational field of that galaxy. It's kind of amazing that lens modelling is even possible. One particular trick is especially important. We can pretend that all of the galaxy's mass is collapsed into a flat plane due to the extreme distances involved compared to the size of the galaxy. This is the thin lens approximation, and it turns gravitational lensing into a classic geometric optics problem. So, we build a lens model based on the light of the lensing galaxy's stars and the positions of the lensed images themselves. That works pretty well when the lensing galaxy is simple, and that requirement for an easily modelable lens reduces the number of useful objects for time delay cosmography dramatically. But even in the case of a simple lens, there are confounding factors that we can't completely rule out. Even if we can see the light from the lens's stars, we can't see its dark matter, so we have to make some assumptions about how it's spread through the galaxy. We also have to try to model the gravitational effects of nearby objects like other galaxies. One of the trickiest issues is called the mass sheet degeneracy. We tend to assume that the lensing galaxy is the only significant source of bending for a given quasar's light, but that light is actually travelling billions of light years and may well pass through other gravitational fields, other mass sheets, on the way. It's very difficult to rule that out. These issues are best solved by making a different type of measurement of the lens's gravitational field. The stars of a galaxy move in the mutual gravity of each other, and it's possible to get a bead on that motion by looking for average Doppler shifts in their starlight. This lets us build a much less ambiguous map of the galaxy's gravitational field. But these sorts of kinematic measurements are very difficult to make, and typically only possible for relatively nearby lensing galaxies. Okay, so let's say we have a perfect lens model. How do we get time delays? Well, by monitoring the system for years with a decent-sized professional telescope and building a light curve for each image in the lens. But even building the light curve isn't easy. The separation between lens images is tiny, and they're often blended together when observed from the ground. They need to be pried apart with clever algorithms. That plus the faintness of these objects means that every measurement has an uncertainty attached to it. On top of that, we can't monitor continuously. There are gaps in the light curve during the day and during a long season gap every year when the sun gets in the way of our lens. All of this adds to the uncertainty in the time delay measurement when we try to line up the light curves from different quasar images. Combine the observing constraints with the lens model uncertainties, and we end up with some big error bars in our measurement of the time delay and in the resulting Hubble constant for any one lens. Okay, so where are we with this whole program? In 2019, the Holy Cow collaboration published their latest measurement of the Hubble constant based on the 6 best lensed quasars, getting a value of 73.3 plus or minus. And just last year, Holy Cow successor, TD Cosmo, improved the analysis and added 2 more lenses to get a slightly smaller 71.6. These numbers are more consistent with the late universe supernova value than the early universe CMB value, but the error bars are larger than the supernova uncertainties. Taken on their own, the time delay cosmography results don't confirm the tension between the late and early expansion measurements. But when these new results are actually combined with the supernova results, they actually do strengthen that tension and suggest a less than 1 in 10 million chance that these values are so different just due to random noise. But we're not quite there in confirming the Hubble tension. There could be some unknown systematic error that is pushing the supernova result to be higher than the CMB result. In that case, the lensing value on its own isn't tight enough to confirm the tension. Now, I'll come back to how that's soon going to change. First though, quasars are awesome for this work because they are perhaps horrifically extremely abundant in the universe. But time delay cosmography was first conceived for use with supernovae, so how do supernovae do? Well, precise measurement of time delay for the late fifth image of supernova Refstal gave us a Hubble constant measurement of around 70, but with pretty large error bars. There's also the lens supernova CN Hope, which is extra special because it's the same sort of type 1a supernova that are used to do our other late universe Hubble constant measurements. So in a sense, this one gave us 2 independent measures of the Hubble constant in one object. In practice, the 2 methods were combined. The lensing side gave us a fairly direct Hubble constant measurement, while the type 1a supernova analysis allowed us to break some of the degeneracies in the lensing analysis. Hope yielded a Hubble constant that's also consistent with other modern universe expansion measurements, but again with huge error bars. For both of these supernovae, the error bars are large, but no larger than we get for any single quasar. The advantage of quasars is that we have more of them. Statistics lets us whittle down the uncertainty. In general, increasing the number of both lensed quasars and lensed supernovae is going to be the key to moving forward, and that is about to happen. In early 2026, the Vera Rubin Observatory will start its LSST survey, in which it'll image the entire southern sky every few days for a full 10 years. Combined with other new facilities like ESO's Euclid satellite, we expect to discover thousands of new lensed quasars and hundreds of lensed supernovae. It's been estimated that the Hubble constant uncertainty will be pushed down to around 1% or less, which, if it happens, will render the Hubble tension incontrovertible. But Rubin may be able to do a lot more. With enough lensed quasars and supernovae, we may be able to do more than measure the modern expansion rate. We may be able to trace the evolution of the expansion history over cosmic time. In the current cosmological model, lambda CDM, dark energy is assumed to have this constant density, but there's evidence that it's not the case, as I mentioned earlier. In 2025, the Dark Energy Spectroscopic Instrument team reported the results of its expansion history study using baryon acoustic oscillations, and we obviously covered that. When combined with the CMB and supernova results, DESI reports a strong indication that dark energy has weakened over cosmic time. This was the dark energy news of the decade. If we can measure that cosmic change somewhat accurately, we can actually start to nail down the physics of dark energy and figure out what the stuff actually is. Time delay cosmography with gravitational lensing may be the key to doing that. In fact, this could be the most important result that will come out of Rubin LSST, and many people are working on it. No big deal really, we just clock the flickering echoes of 1,000 ancient cataclysms and discover the culprit behind our accelerating spacetime. Thank you to The Economist for supporting PBS. From reporting on scientific innovation to the shifting landscape of global politics, The Economist's mission is to deliver comprehensive coverage that goes beyond the headlines. The Economist aims to make complex topics accessible and engaging, such as a recent long feature exploring how we might export life to Mars, and the emerging field of applied astrobiology. The Economist app includes daily journalism, plus subscriber-only podcasts and newsletters, narrated audio articles, and Insider, a new weekly video series where senior editors unpack the stories shaping today's world, from geopolitics to technology. As a viewer of PBS Spacetime, you can get a special 35% off to enjoy The Economist.
Mash the keyboard, buddy. Wait, never mind. Well played. Well played. I was actually really talented, very talented player.
According to MIT, 95% of corporate AI projects have failed to replace human labor, with even the most powerful models automating less than 3% of human tasks. And while over half of all employers now regret AI-driven layoffs, nearly 75% of the S&P 500's growth has been driven entirely by AI speculation, raising the question, will we once again be forced to bail out enormous amounts of corporate greed? While the United States continues to enter periods of severe financial speculation, largely because the consequences are never paid by those responsible, this artificial intelligence boom is once again proving that while history may not repeat, it always finds a way to rhyme, with an emerging AI winter eerily mirroring those of the past. Just years prior to the historic dot-com boom and bust, the United States was already experiencing a full-blown artificial intelligence frenzy driven by geopolitical competition with Japan. Throughout the late 1970s and early 80s, Japan rapidly consolidated dominance across semiconductors, consumer electronics, and precision manufacturing, culminating in a decade-long government-backed effort to build machines capable of using artificial intelligence to reason, communicate, and respond to spoken language. Known as a fifth-generation computer systems program, the initiative was frequently compared to the American drive to land a man on the moon, with the explicit goal of overtaking US computing technology. And as American economists openly predicted that Japan would surpass the United States as the world's leading economic power by the year 2000, US policymakers and corporate leadership increasingly framed artificial intelligence as the decisive pillar of economic survival and global influence. This culminated in the national expansion of the expert system, an intelligent computer program designed to use encoded knowledge and inference rules to solve problems that would typically require the judgment of leading experts within an industry. As the federal government poured hundreds of millions of dollars into these systems, while also encouraging corporate rivals to work together under the banner of national security, in traditional corporate fashion, the exact opposite occurred. Rather than grounding artificial intelligence in what existing hardware, data, and logic systems could realistically support, firms raced to signal relevance through prototypes, pilot programs, and inflated expectations, with headlines even claiming that a single expert system could replace the work of 10 specialists. In reality, these systems could only automate extremely narrow tasks, such as screening loan applications or flagging routine decisions, and routinely failed when confronted with real-world complexity. This most famously occurred when a medical expert system claimed that a male patient's infection had been caused by a procedure performed exclusively on pregnant women, simply because researchers failed to include a rule accounting for gender. And as Japan's 5th-generation computer systems program ultimately failed, while expert systems began creating more problems than they solved, jobs were lost, taxpayer funds were wasted, and the American workforce was forced to pick up the pieces of yet another broken hype cycle. Today, while Japan has since been replaced by China as the nation's boogeyman, hundreds of thousands of lives have once again been uprooted under the language of national security and productivity, as artificial intelligence is used to justify workforce reductions long before it has demonstrated any ability to reliably replace human labor. To test whether artificial intelligence can actually automate human labor at scale, researchers from the Center for AI Safety and Scale AI released what is known as the Remote Labor Index. In the test, state-of-the-art models built by companies like OpenAI, Anthropic, and Google were tasked with completing the same work currently performed by paid human workers under identical expectations of quality, accuracy, and consistency. The results show that even the best-performing model achieves an automation rate of just 3.75%, with Gemini falling below 1%. And this widening gap between hype and automation is not limited to white-collar work, as fast food chains have pushed to aggressively replace minimum wage workers, as if that's the primary driver for rising costs. McDonald's quietly ended its AI drive-thru pilot after the system repeatedly failed in basic, real-world conditions. Orders were miscounted, including totals as high as 260 chicken McNuggets, customers were charged for 9 iced teas instead of 1, and the system routinely placed bacon on ice cream. McDonald's also removed an AI-generated holiday advertisement following widespread backlash, later attributing the issue to its Netherlands operation, stating that the ad was intended to reflect the stressful moments during the holidays in the Netherlands. But we recognize that for many of our guests, this season is the most wonderful time of the year. In the rush to remove human drivers, Tesla launched its robotaxi service in Austin 8 months ago. At the time, Tesla promised 500 vehicles in Austin, coverage for half the US population, fully unsupervised rides, and expansion to 8 to 10 cities, all by the end of 2025. Today, the service operates roughly 42 cars in Austin. Availability remains below 20%, and unsupervised operation has either been paused or quietly redefined. In some cases, with the Tesla employee sitting in a vehicle behind the robotaxi to monitor its behavior. And while it may not be a perfect one-to-one comparison, the robotaxi is currently crashing at roughly 9 times the rate of a human driver, while Waymo, a competing autonomous driving service, admitted during a congressional hearing that after striking a child in a school zone, its vehicles rely on overseas human operators to help make driving decisions when it becomes stumped. And while responsibility for life or death decisions is quickly being outsourced overseas, domestically, artificial intelligence is already producing unbelievably severe consequences. In 2021, a unit of Johnson & Johnson announced what it called a leap forward, adding artificial intelligence to a medical device used to assist ear, nose, and throat surgeons during operations. Prior to the AI update, the FDA had received unconfirmed reports of 7 device malfunctions and 1 patient injury. After artificial intelligence was added, the FDA received reports of at least 100 malfunctions and adverse events. Most involved the system misinforming surgeons about the location of their instruments while operating inside patients' heads. In one case, cerebral spinal fluid leaked from a patient's nose. In another, a surgeon punctured the base of a patient's skull. In 2 additional cases, patients reportedly suffered strokes after major arteries were accidentally damaged. And this is not even remotely close to an isolated failure. More than 1,357 AI-enabled medical devices are now authorized by the FDA, double the number approved in 2022. The agency has since received reports involving dozens of other AI-enhanced tools, including a heart monitor that allegedly failed to detect abnormal heartbeats, an ultrasound device that misidentified fetal body parts, and an AI-enhanced stethoscope that incorrectly flagged heart failure in nearly 2/3 of more than 12,000 patients. At the same time, large language model chatbots designed to provide medical guidance have demonstrated widespread hallucinations, while experts warn that clinicians are already losing the ability to independently identify cancers in scans due to growing reliance on AI-powered detection systems. And while I could spend this entire video demonstrating all of the ways that AI has failed to deliver on its promises, let's instead discuss all of the ways that AI has actually succeeded. Artificial intelligence has successfully become the most effective blanket justification for the mass replacement of American jobs. Companies like Amazon cut roughly 14,000 employees in 2025 and announced plans to eliminate another 16,000 roles attributed to AI, with Senior Vice President Beth Coletti calling it the most transformative technology we've seen since the internet. At the same time, Amazon ranked numbers 1, 11, 24, and 49 among the top 100 companies approved for H-1B workers, totaling 14,365 new hires, more than the number of official layoffs in 2025, and is already on pace to exceed that figure this year. Microsoft made roughly 6,000 H-1B hires during the same period it cut 10,000 American workers. Meta, after publicly restructuring around AI, quietly replaced its assistant M with a human-assisted version monitored by overseas contractors. Amazon even operates an entire division called Mechanical Turk, where thousands of freelancers train and operate AI systems through direct human labor, a name borrowed from the 18th century chess machine that appeared automated while secretly being controlled by a man hidden inside. And in this pursuit of supposed AI-driven productivity, more than 1 million workers have been laid off, with October marking the worst month for job cuts since 2003, and 2026 beginning with the highest levels of layoffs since the Great Recession. Which brings us to the second, and arguably more pressing victory for artificial intelligence: its successful capture of federal policymaking. According to fiscal data from the US Treasury, the federal deficit has already reached $697 billion and is projected to grow to $1.85 trillion this year. National debt is now expected to rise from roughly $34 trillion to over $55 trillion by 2035, a 62% increase, marking the highest level of sovereign debt ever recorded. And with productivity growth stagnating, manufacturing hollowed out, the dollar weakening, and household consumption increasingly sustained by credit, the only remaining way for the United States to maintain the appearance of global dominance is through the illusion of growth. And right now, that illusion is being carried almost entirely by artificial intelligence. A September 2025 analysis from Deutsche Bank warned that without AI-related investment, the US economy would already be in a technical recession, or for the first time in American history, corporate spending on AI has outpaced consumer spending as a primary driver of GDP growth. Even Elon Musk admitted on the Joe Rogan Experience that the only way to get us out of this debt crisis and prevent America from going bankrupt is AI and robotics, adding that if artificial intelligence fails to at least double national productivity, we're toast. With that expectation set, unlike the 1980s, when the US government cut the losses of taxpayer funds tied to its early AI ambitions, policymakers today are going all in, betting that artificial intelligence can correct decades of economic mismanagement. In 2024, nearly 75% of all gains in the S&P 500 were driven by just 7 companies, all tied directly to artificial intelligence. NVIDIA, Microsoft, Apple, Amazon, Google, Meta, and Tesla now make up more than 1/3 of the entire index, marking the most concentrated share in US market history, with the hope of eventual profitability already projected to require nearly $2 trillion in additional spending by 2030, a sum larger than the combined annual earnings of the entire S&P 500 tech sector. Meanwhile, Americans are more exposed to this risk than at any point in history. Data from the Federal Reserve shows that direct and indirect stock holdings, including mutual funds and retirement accounts, now represent 45% of all household financial assets, the highest share ever recorded, meaning that tens of trillions of dollars in savings, 401ks, and retirement plans are now tied not to what AI is today, but to what the nation is hoping it will eventually become, highlighting that if artificial intelligence companies need the government to appear tough on H-1B visas to mask widespread displacement, well, so be it. If those same companies need to quietly walk back their automation claims and announce selective rehiring, then another historic annual job revision will suffice. If powering multi-billion-dollar data centers requires more land, more energy, and more infrastructure, the cost can simply be shifted onto local residents. And if those companies ultimately need to be bailed out, then, as always, it will be framed as a necessity, funded by taxpayer dollars, proving that while replacing humans with AI is going terribly wrong by our metrics, the only real ramifications will once again be paid by the American workforce.
Like at some level, when something gets sufficiently huge, whether or not they are on paper, the federal government is kind of the insurer of last resort, as we've seen in various financial crises and insurance companies screwing things up. So I guess, given the magnitude of what I expect AI economic impact to look like, I do think the government ends up as like the insurer of last resort.
And so what I hope that we're beginning to recognize is that this national pursuit of AI actually has far less to do with automating human workers, at least as of right now, and far more to do with providing this massive blanket statement that removes any form of accountability. What we are witnessing is these individuals that have billions and billions and billions of dollars, the most power that we can imagine, and they're kind of fitting into these two different camps. One of them is saying AI is growing at a rate that we couldn't even imagine. It's scary, and there's going to be an apocalypse, and there will be no white-collar workers, and you should be scared, and you should, blah, blah, blah. But the way that you could save yourself is by using our product and spending $20 a month. Now, on the other side is you have this thing that I don't know if you guys have noticed, but it's almost like this new wave of there's going to be a utopia. Don't be scared of AI. Everything's going to work out great. There's going to be so much prosperity that, like Elon Musk said, you don't even need to save for retirement. Why put any money into your 401k? Just spend the money now. It's going to be perfect. And if it's not, then it's going to be horrible. And so what that ultimately does is that you either say, okay, I'll give you my money and I'll use your product, or I'll give you every ounce of power and autonomy and privacy that I have because I guess you have the ability to give me prosperity. At the end of the day, it isn't designed for us. Well, you can recognize within your own life. With every action that we do, there are consequences. You can decide, ultimately, I'm still going to do it, or I'm not going to. If I eat this massive bag of candy and cookies and cake and I drink soda and all these different things, I most likely will have a stomach ache. If I go to bed early, I will most likely feel better in the morning. If I go and work out, I will most likely feel more healthy. In an entrepreneurial sense, if I build X, it's going to help solve Y. If I build X, it's going to make Y even faster, even better. There's an end result in mind. I have yet to hear of a collective, decisive understanding of what AI is actually supposed to do for us. These CEOs and public figures have no idea. You even have Sam Altman saying that whenever ChatGPT comes to, God tier or whatever, that they're going to ask ChatGPT, how do we make this a profitable business model? That's like the most insane thing that I have ever heard. What I'm really just kind of trying to do is I'm really just trying to put into perspective that if you do not have the end goal in mind, that it is unbelievably obvious. If you are not prioritizing making homes affordable right now, improving the dollar right now, allowing more small businesses to thrive right now, giving college graduates entry-level jobs, making the job market more robust, providing more fair wages, all of these many things. If you aren't doing that to fix it right now, you aren't actually building the bridge with artificial intelligence to get us to that destination. You are building it to provide, an improved bottom line, to have investors thrive. It's going to come at the cost of your autonomy and your power and your privacy. And at the end of the day, you might get lucky enough and you might have a crumb thrown your way. But I'm, at least as of right now, maybe I'm cynical, I'm just not seeing what the real intention of all of this is. And if it doesn't work out, I'm sorry to say it, I see no signs that the bill isn't going to be pushed our way. I think it kind of has to be. The government kind of has to bail it out. And so, yeah, that makes our lives even worse. And I think that they understand that. If you paint everything as a state of national emergency, the federal government, as blind as they are, and with their pockets being lined as much as they are, you just kind of throw as much money their way as possible. At the end of the day, that's our money. So I think that while it is absolutely true, AI is not working in the corporate environment right now. And there are certainly some use cases that it is thriving in. I really am just kind of trying to provide this alternative discussion of, we have to begin looking at, what is the actual use case for this? What are they actually trying to push for? I think that what really matters is how narratives are being controlled. AI is unfortunately this like blanket statement that not only removes accountability, it also provides distraction, and it doesn't allow, I think, information to be able to come through. I personally get it a lot myself. I see a ton of comments that say, can't trust this guy, he's just AI. Another AI generated video, more AI slop. You can tell his video or his background isn't real. Like, this is real. This background, I am a real person. But when you start having comments like that and tons of people are liking it, or it's just bots, who knows? It plants a seed of, maybe I can't trust this. And let me adjust this light here real quick. And when people start to think, well, maybe I can't trust what's going on, well, you kind of start to dissociate and you start to remove yourself and you start to just kind of say, what is it that I can even do? I'm just going to give the power to these corporations and let's just see what happens. We can't let that happen. I think one of the massive accomplishments that we are seeing is that channels like myself or channels like mine and other channels similar, we were discussing how AI-driven layoffs actually had nothing to do with AI far before I saw any massive headlines from like CNBC or CBS. I was able to get Dr. Ron Hira, the leading expert on H-1B replacement and American outsourcing. That is a massive accomplishment. Myself and others like me have been able to allow millions of other people to get a sense of what is actually going on. And I think that's what's allowed us to control the narrative more than I think they thought they'd be able to. I think that's why it's kind of having to be rolled back a little bit quicker than they might have imagined. And so if they keep trying to pivot, or we start having these products pushed our way with it marketed as AI not included, or, enjoy this coffee mug not made by AI. Well, they market it up. You want it more because it seems authentic and it seems real. It's the same thing that we have right now. We have to make sure that we say, you have to stop pushing this product. I don't want to Google something and every time it's some sort of like, not at all what I looked up. I just have yet to actually experience a platform that I regularly use that AI has now been forced onto and it actually work. It just doesn't. And so I think that we have to start holding these platforms accountable. And so ultimately, I hope that this video is able to provide some value to you. I'm really just trying to do the best that I can. I'm really trying to just paint the story that I think that we need to hear, and maybe we don't want to hear or isn't actively being discussed. And I really hope that it's providing some value. If this channel is providing value to you, I would really appreciate if you like the video and subscribed if you haven't already done so. It really helps me get the videos out in front of the individuals that really want to make a better tomorrow. I'm actively doing everything that I can to not only allow us to have a more prosperous future, but I'm really trying to do things I'm really trying to plan for future generations as well. I think that we have to start having that happen, and I'm going to try to lead that in whatever way that I can. So again, thank you all so much for your time. I hope that this was able to to give you a little something that maybe you didn't already have before. And I look forward to speaking with you next time. Bye-bye.